How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here from GN Tech, and welcome to a camera comparison between the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone XS Max from last year. So I'm recording this on the front-facing cameras on both of these smartphones in the sweltering hot conditions of Dubai. But as you can see, this is recording at 4K 30 FPS, which is the iPhone 11 Pro Max, whereas the iPhone XS Max can do 1080p at 30 FPS. Now, with these samples, you can judge how much of a better job the iPhone 11 Pro Max does from what I can see. Also, it's a much wider field of view, which should help vloggers in their day-to-day vlogging life. But you can also judge the audio that's coming out of the microphones from both of these smartphones, and based on how they sound, you can make an accurate judgment on whether these two phones, or which one out of these two, would be a suitable companion for vlogging or not. But with that being said, I'm now going to move into the primary camera photos and video samples to give you guys a better assessment of which phone does the overall better job and how much of the upgrade the iPhone 11 Pro Max is over the iPhone XS Max. So in this video, we're literally comparing apples to apples, with the iPhone 11 Pro Max bringing significant changes to optics compared to the iPhone XS Max. The front camera also sees an upgrade, but how does all of that translate to real pictures? We'll start with the major difference between both the cameras. Here's an image sample that looks pretty identical from what I can tell. So based on this, the 11 Pro Max seems to have very similar, if not the same, color profiles as last year's XS Max. Of course, with the 11 Pro Max, you can get a wide-angle view of the entire scene, painting a much better picture of it using the ultra-wide lens, which is something you cannot do with the iPhone XS Max. Here's a picture with more going on, where again, it's pretty difficult to pinpoint any major difference. I just feel like the iPhone 11 Pro's colors are captured more true to life. If you have a look at the yellow car in the background, or the colors of the chairs, which are just slightly more saturated on the XS Max. This sample shows us the natural shallow depth of field processing from both phones, where both the lenses locked onto the tree bark with no problem. Background blur to bring out the subject is pretty identical, but in the background we see that the 11 Pro Max is doing a better job with exposing the greens, but I think these are very minute differences. Here's a situation that tests dynamic range, and it's no surprise that both these phones produce similar, if not literally the same results. One thing I've consistently said in my comparison so far is how true to life color from the 11 Pro Max is, and that stays true even in this next sample. The warmer look of the iPhone 11 Pro Max paints a more accurate representation of the scene when testing out the zoom capabilities on both phones. This is at 1x zoom and will zoom into the building in the middle to look at 2x zoom. It might just be me, but I think the difference in color profile aside, the building actually looks sharper on the iPhone XS Max. Both these phones have 2x optical zoom lenses, and even at 3x zoom, I feel like the XS Max is doing pretty well. Here's the same sample at 5x zoom and then at 10x zoom, but seeing how similar these photos were, there doesn't seem to be much change in terms of zoom technology between this year's and last year's iPhone. We'll move now to portraits, where the competition is even closer. Both phones replicate skin tones well, but the 11 Pro Max to me seems to get lighting on the face more accurate, but this isn't a huge deal. It also improves on edge detection, seeing that the XS Max struggled on the right side for this picture and now also has a wide angle portrait mode feature, something that the iPhone XS Max cannot do, and it helps with capturing more of the surrounding area. We also wanted to test portraits in very harsh lighting conditions, where each phone is doing a pretty good job. Again, the light is controlled better on the 11 Pro Max, but aside from that, there isn't much between these two samples. Edge detection is also pretty similar, and of course here too, you can try out the wide angle portrait feature to capture more of the detail around. This is looking at portraits of objects, where each phone is doing well, just that the color of the subject is more true to life on the 11 Pro Max. But interestingly, the 11 Pro Max couldn't blur out the portion in between the chain, something that XS Max could do, which could mean the 11 Pro Max may need some software tweaking in the future. Of course, using the wide portrait mode feature here is useful, but edge detection on the 11 Pro Max is less than impressive, blurring out the entire left part of the chain. So far, there hasn't been a huge difference between the two phones aside from the wide angle pictures that you can capture, but when testing the front camera, it's more evident. The 11 Pro Max is clearly handling this selfie much better, and on top of that offers a wide selfie mode as well, something the XS Max does not have. While the wide selfie mode is good, it unfortunately does not support wide portraits, but when comparing these two, you can clearly see the 11 Pro Max doing the better job. Even in a less challenging scenario, the 11 Pro Max is able to capture more facial details, but the difference is much less than the samples before. Again, there is a wide-angle selfie mode for your group selfies, and with portrait mode enabled, the 11 Pro Max has the sharper photo and sharper edges from the background overall. Now here's a look at a few indoor samples. This first one shows the difference the ultra-wide-angle lens makes, allowing you to capture much more of the detail in this macro shot. In terms of colors, I'd say the 11 Pro Max colors are warmer, and the image here looks a lot sharper than the XS Max image, with more detail being picked up from the wall. Lastly, there's this image where even when I tried to nitpick between them, there was hardly any noticeable difference, which goes to show how similar the phone cameras are in this regard. With indoor samples out of the way, let's take a look at night samples. Between these two, it is barely possible to tell the difference once again. Each phone is doing an identical job, but the benefit the 11 Pro Max has is its night mode that enhances and brings out a lot more detail in the overall image. This is the big difference from the iPhone XS Max, and it's a feature that is not available on it. Here's another sample where the image without night mode is pretty identical, barring a few sharpness differences on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, but with night mode the image is enhanced further for better clarity and detail all across the board. We've also got this image where the 11 Pro Max didn't use night mode because there's plenty of light available. With this sample, you're able to judge that the 11 Pro Max is natively able to handle detail better than the XS Max, going by the pattern on the yellow box here. And lastly, there's this one. Again, you can tell that the 11 Pro Max can process images better without night mode, bringing out more detail, and with night mode enabled, the visuals are even better. The XS Max on the other hand seems to have a much softer look to the photos. To test the ultra-wide lens during night, here's an example of two images again. It seems the darker it gets, the more close the images are without night mode. With night mode enabled, there is a big difference from the 11 Pro Max, and here I tried using the ultra-wide lens, which shows a huge drop in quality. Something to note also is that the 11 Pro Max cannot take night mode photos using the ultra-wide lens. Jumping over to nighttime selfies, the quality from the 11 Pro Max is better. Of course, you can use the wide selfie feature here as well as switch to the portrait mode, and on the overall, I do prefer the 11 Pro samples. With photos done, here's a look at video samples. 1080p footage at 30 FPS from both just shows that the 11 Pro Max has warmer tones. Stabilization is only a hint better, but you can use the ultra-wide lens to capture video too, adding another dimension to what you've captured. Running footage from both at their standard angle goes to show some pretty similar stabilization results. 4K footage is a hint sharper from the 11 Pro Max, but again, there is no major difference. It's also stabilizing footage a bit better, and of course, given the ultra-wide lens, you get to capture more of your surrounding area, retaining the natural look and stability of footage. But it seems to me that when you're running when filming 4K footage, the iPhone XS Max actually does a slightly better job with stabilization over the 11 Pro Max. With 4K 60 FPS footage, the 11 Pro Max shows a huge difference in stability of video footage, and that is something that XS Max cannot compete with and is a major improvement. Filming video at night shows us the difference between quality at 1080p 30 FPS. The 11 Pro Max footage is a bit sharper and also has less of a jerk motion to it. The additional feature is that it has the ultra-wide lens over the XS Max, but with it, there is a drop in the quality of video captured compared to the normal angle lens of the XS Max. Next is 4K footage at 30 FPS, which of course looks sharper and more stable from the iPhone 11 Pro Max. To be honest, the 11 Pro Max just makes everything look natural, and again, you can use the wide-angle lens, which sacrifices quality no doubt, but gives you the wider field of view. At 4K 60 FPS, footage from both looks good, but the iPhone 11 Pro Max is better with the stabilization, allowing it to be one step ahead of the iPhone XS Max. So there you have it, comparing this year's iPhone 11 Pro Max to last year's iPhone XS Max. Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe. I hope you found this video useful if you're planning to upgrade. Thanks for watching, this was Vaibhav, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios!